growth, growth, growth in many ways. So stay tuned and then all will be revealed. Good morning everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Yes, work has been charging on at rapid pace on making up since January, I tell you. Anyway, since the last video I've added these fences down that side of the platform and also that side, and I'll just include a short clip now to show how I went about doing that. Well, you might be looking at this and thinking, what on earth is going on here? No, it's not a hairnet, it's a paint strainer. You put it over your tin of paint and then you can tip your paint through it and it sieves out all the rubbish. But I want it for N-gauge chain link fencing. There's fences running along the platforms, the disused platforms, and I need to replicate less than 1mm holes. So this is what I did. Right, so I've assembled all the parts I need. So you can see there's the netting, if you like, or the one of these. I can't remember. It's a filter for your paint, isn't it? I've got some cotton, which is going to be like rails running along the sides. And I've got the posts just there. They're 12mm posts, so I can put it into the platform. And there's some 7mm ones there. It's just 1mm by 1mm rod, painted to a kind of concrete beige colour. Well, you might just be able to make out that I stuck down some double-sided tape first of all, and then using the marks on the piece of paper, stuck each of the posts onto the paper, making sure they were nice and square and the same distance apart. And then you can see two lines of cotton which are taped down at both ends to make sure it stays nice and taut. And that's when I daubed a small amount of super glue onto each of the joints where the posts meet the crossways rails. And then finally stick the netting, spray green over the top and just daub super glue over all the areas where the posts are. And that was all stuck down with masking tape as well. It's a bit of a job there. Right, welcome back. So I hope you enjoyed seeing that. Yes, it was incredibly fiddly. I cannot say it wasn't, but that's N-gauge and sometimes that's the way life is. So the next stage then, as those fences have gone in, is to now insert the walls, which are these. And they were made from card, so that's 1mm card, and at the intersections, i.e. those, that is a piece of paper, brick paper folded in half and then wrapped around, and then I've got 1mm strip of card along the top. So, and obviously varnished. So I'm now going to stick those in, certainly down this side. I'm not going to be doing this bit just yet. It does need all that fitting. Because I'm basically going to work on this platform for the time being. Once that's in, then we can start thinking about the hill. Right, so the walls are in, apart from the one on the main platform, as I said before. So now I'm going to start turning my attention to this mound here. It does seem to sort of have the wall stop sort of short, and then it sort of comes right across like that. And then we've got some palisade fencing, the 6-foot stuff, security fencing going across there like that. So I'll start doing this by screwing up some newspaper and then papier-mâché over the top. So I'll just show you when it's done. It's pretty much the same process as I've done all the time. I don't really need to show you that as I've done it loads of times. Okay, so I'll catch you shortly. Right, there we go. That's the start of it. So that's had 5 layers of papier-mâché, and you can see it's quite a tall structure really, and looking at pictures that's what I believe it is, and obviously there's trees growing all off that, and the building obviously goes just there. So I'm going to let that dry. Hopefully it should be dry maybe an hour. It's quite warm today and I've used neat PVA and obviously newspaper. The structure underneath was formed with some A3 paper, just screwed up and just put down, and then I fixed it down with masking tape, as I did pretty much with this area here, if you remember the first video on this. And then I papier-mâché over the top. So, see you in a bit. Well, I'm not exaggerating, it's about an hour later, and that's certainly dry enough to start doing something with it. So I'm going to crack on. Well, I got to the point really where I couldn't do much more without ballasting the track, because there's going to be mess going all over the track and it's just easier to ballast it first. So enjoy. Right, just focusing on this platform for a short time. So you can see I've got a base layer in now, and what I need to do now is to add some grassy bits and then some polyfibre type material, and build up some of these bushes that are running along the front edge of the platform, and just slightly dipping over the other side there. That's generally a pathway as far as I can see, and it's, or in here, slightly not quite so corroded, if you like. But certainly along here, all over the platform, all the way down there, it's quite busy with foliage and things like that. I'm using images from Google Maps to help me out and try and get things, the right colours and roughly the right sort of. Right, forgive all the mess down the side here, it's an absolute tip. But just a view from the other side, a view down that way as well. But otherwise, apart from the trees, obviously, which are going to be a major component in this scene, I'm going to call that bit done. So moving on. Right, so I think although it looks a little bit strange at the moment, it is covered in white glue. So once that dries, hopefully it will look a lot better than it does now. But that's ready for trees once that's all that's set. Now moving on to this section. So I am going to do a similar type of thing at this end. I'm going to refer to pictures, to be honest with you. I don't just want to do it off the top of my head, because I want to get the impression of what is actually going on. What I can see, I'm looking at Google Maps at the moment, and there's a humongous tree growing up right in the middle of there. So that should look quite good. And there's also some more trees sort of growing out of varying places. It looks like the platform surface is completely broke down, but so there's trees all the way through it, which will look really, really lovely. So I'm going to refer to some other pictures I've got from videos and places like that, and then put a basic ground cover on, which is probably not too dissimilar to that, but probably not quite so heavy. I don't know yet, because obviously there's a lot of debris to go in. I do know that there was a picture where there was a load of roof slates in there. And so I do need to put those in, and varying other things as well. So it's going to be a very similar sort of thing. I'll time lapse it if I can, but otherwise I'll see you at the other side. Okay. Right, looks like the time lapse thing didn't work out. Never mind. Right, so what I've done so far, obviously it's smothered in glue at the moment, so it's going to look a little bit worse for wear. But I put some of the moss, the dried moss, into a blender and made it into a dust. And it comes out like a coarse dust. So I'll sprinkle a load of that on, along with some sawdust and also some sand, tiny bits of sand. So you can see that we've got a little bit of plant growth, which we've got a big lump stuck to the building there. And even it's gone all over the roof, but never mind, I can brush that off. So what I'm going to do now is look for debris and I'm going to take some strips from the 3D printer. What I mean by that is when before the 3D printer does a print, it usually draws a line down the side, and obviously I just take them off and throw them away. But if I take some of that and chop it up into little bits, maybe put some of that in the blender and see how that works out, and then scatter some of that on, that might look like bricks, for example. See how it goes. Well, I can't believe it. I've just made a discovery. When you 3D print something, you use a raft. All those bits of plastic I normally just chuck away. But I thought, I wonder, if I bung them in a blender, what would happen? Well, rubble. Look at it. I'm amazed at that. And that'll be, I know there's some big bits in there, but that would do well for 00 or N-gauge. I really doesn't matter to me. I mean, some of the big bits would be big. So I'm just going to scatter some of that through. And then one of the things I do need to do is all along here on the Google Maps sort of 3D view, all along the platform side of the fence, there are like large pieces of gutter, for want of a better phrase. So I've printed all that off, and I've got to stick those on. You might just be able to make them out on there. And there's also, just a bit of a heads up, there's also some anti-static ramps there, which I should be putting on the platforms at some point. So there we go. I'll get those stuck on. Don't need to watch me doing that, but I'll show you shortly. Right, that's the scene as it is at the moment. Now, it looks awful at the moment, I have to be honest, but there's lots of white glue in there. So I think the best thing I can do is to let it dry and then have another look at it and make some adjustments if need be. But I have added this beam. You probably are familiar with Dinting Station, seems to have all of these beams here. They've all got them. See that bit there, and show you it's just on the front of that bit there. So they've all got something like that, but obviously this one has fallen down. There was some roof slates in there as well. So what I did, in focus, I 3D printed some roof slates. Now what I've done for these buildings, pristine ones, is to put like a backing plate behind them and 3D print them with the backing plate attached, so it holds everything in place. Whereas those, I printed just the tiles without that backing plate, so that I could literally just snap them into pieces. And I think they've turned out quite nicely, but so like I said, let's leave it now. Regarding trees, now I am going to try and match the type of trees which are fairly close, although what type of tree it is what type of tree it is. So I'm going to use a similar method with the wire. I'll show you that in a bit, but I'm not going to go so heavy this time. I felt, looking back on them, I think they still look a bit blobby. We'll see how the new ones turn out. I might even decide to replace these ones. Those ones are not so bad, because those trees in new mills are quite like that. They're like lollipops or kebabs, if you like. Whereas these ones on the corner here do tend to look a bit not so great. So I'll see what these turn out like, and we'll make some decisions after that. Right, welcome back. Now, before I show you my tree thing, I must say I'm no tree expert by any means, and there are many, many, many ways of making a tree. One of the most popular ways at the moment is to buy some seafoam and use those structures you get as a basis, and then you add all your flocks and everything else and whatever's to those, and they come out amazingly. Now, I'm not doing it that way because, to be honest with you, the box of seafoam can be quite expensive, but on the other hand, compared to the number of trees you can buy and then commercially available trees, I suppose you could say it's quite cheap. But my method is dirt cheap, I have to be honest, but the results can be mixed. So anyway, first of all, you need a piece of wood with a nail in it, and I strongly advise you to remove the head off that nail. If you don't, when you wrap the wire around it, the head will stop it from coming off. So it's very important you cut the head off, but be aware, obviously there's a safety risk there. If you tread on it, you'll know about it. You'll need some wire. This is 0.3 garden wire. You can go bigger, but obviously it's harder to work with. You can go smaller, but then, you know, this seems to be a nice compromise between the two. Next, you want some hemp rope. Now, I've bought this very heavy duty stuff, and if I was to cut a piece off, and I'll do this for the next tree, you can then cut it or peel it off into little bits like that, and for N gauge that's more realistic than what it would be for leaving it like that. If you had it like that, branches like that would probably be for O gauge, and you could probably, if you frayed it a little bit, you can get away with that with 00, but that's what I'm doing for N, and then fraying that down even more. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to cut yourself a piece of wire which is twice the length of your tree. So I'm going to go for a tree around about that sort of size, like so, and then you fold it in half. So take the two ends together like that and pinch. So what you do then with your hemp rope is you feed it through the wire like that, and personally I'm just going to give that a bit of a twist, because I find that if you don't, it will come out. And we'll do another twist obviously in the drill, and I'm just going to keep feeding it through like that. You can have it central if you want to, but to be honest, I'm finding it much more exciting and interesting if they're not centralised. Once you've got a reasonable number of branches in there, I'll show you the next bit in a minute. Now the next thing to do is to dribble super glue down the branches, but because it's quite toxic and I actually started to feel ill by doing it, I thought I'd better do it by an open window. Okay, so what I've done is I held it like that, and I literally, I'm not going to do it, but took the super glue and dribbled down like that. Okay, now I'm going to put it into a block of wood. Now I'm going to take each end and splay it out, which adds to the tree effect, if you like, as all the branches do tend to end up in little slithers. Now the smell of this and the fumes of this will be absolutely enormous, so it's, like I said, by an open window, and trust me, if you don't, you'll know about it. Well, this stuff you do. Right, one thing I did forget to mention is obviously this polyfibre. Now I've just sprayed it grey with some primer, ideally sprayed green. You can buy it, Woodland Scenics sell it, but it is obviously quite expensive. Now the secret to this, I think, is tease. Now that probably would be okay for a 00 gauge, but that's nowhere close for an N gauge. So I'm going to take the smaller piece and I'm going to tease it out all the more, so you can barely see it. I'd say that is one of the secrets. I mean, even in 00, to be honest with you. So it literally is just a skeleton framework which you can barely see on my fingers. And now I'm going to take it off a branch. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the end there like that, and sort of drape it over, kind of like that. Hopefully you can see. Now I'm not going to show you any more than that for the time being. I'm going to get all of that covered, and when we're ready for flocking, I'll come back. Right, obviously you're going to choose your different flocks. I'm going to use some earth on the bottom of the tree, burnt grass on the top for this particular tree, and then vary it. I tried to use a slightly darker colour on the bottom and lighter ones on the top, but it's up to you. Now obviously I don't want this to come out. It's starting to come out now. Now the secret is don't go mad. you want it covered. See, it's definitely coming. So just a little bit more there. Right, let's go on with the other colour, just to give it some variation. Yeah, that's going to give a nice sort of, oops, don't go mad. Anyway, that's pretty much ready for the layout. Now, the other type of tree I want to show you is a silver birch tree. Silver birch trees seem to be going through the station derelict parts of the building, and I will also be using them on the other disused platform, and I'll explain the reason for that when I do the reveal. But I went in the garden looking for some tree-like structures, and I found this. I don't know what it is, and I've not got a lot of it, and obviously gratefully it's past its best, so this is dying. So if you know what that is, please put it in the comments, and then other people can look for it as well. But what I've done is I've taken some small strands, I've sprayed it white with white primer, and then you can see the black dots. I've literally just got a small pen, a black pen, and literally just put dots all over it. Now, silver birch trees seem to have all their foliage on the top of the tree, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I've just done with the other tree, and that is to use the polyfibre, glue it on. I'm not going to show you this because it's exactly the same process as before. The only difference being is I'm going to use very pale with this, so I'm going to go in with the burnt grass, and then I'm going to look for a more yellowy style green that goes on the top. So I'll show you that later. Right, and for the reveal. Now, I've not finished by any means, and there's still, obviously, there's some more trees to go in, and you'll realise that when you see. But that platform is almost there. I need some silver birches, or one silver birch there, maybe one there, and then more regular trees going down there. Excuse the wooden block. And obviously I need to do this area. And you can see I've got some trees in here, but I still need to do this area, probably another 3, maybe 2, 3, something like that. What I don't want to do is overfill the area and then you can't see in it. I think that would be a mistake to do that. It's getting a little bit more that way over this side. The camera makes the trees look a bit grey, but I promise you they are more greeny. So actually on the camera they look a bit of a mess, but in reality they don't look too bad, to be honest with you. So you've got the fence in there, and well, I'll show you this next bit. I can't, just gobsmacked how it's come out, to be honest with you. I don't understand myself, but there'll be another tree going in there, but I'm just, those silver birches make it, I think. And obviously you can see now the beam that's fallen down and all the rubble inside there. So like I said, there'll be another tree going in there. So let's take you inside. So all that rubble I put in there, I went over with a Nol wash, and you can see all those pieces of large gutter, if you like. They run all the way down the platform. Down there, I'll take you around the other side. So the back of the scene now, again you can see all the rubble in there, and inside there you can see all the slates that have fallen down. It's a job to negotiate the trees now. There we go. So as the roof collapsed, all the slates ended up on the ground with all the rubble as well. So if I give you a shot up there now. So I'm really quite pleased with the way that's turned out. Just give you a bit of a pan up. Oh, excuse the squeaking. That's the camera moving along the platform. I'm not going to be able to get any further, but what I'll do is just scroll round get an idea that way. Hopefully I'm doing the area justice, and the view up there. As I said there does need to be some more trees going in as a bit of a backdrop. But my problem being is that it's a concrete surface. Now that might have broke down a little bit like this side has. So I could probably get away with the silver birch there, maybe one around about here somewhere. But when I look down this side, and it's going to be a retaining wall, you see my point. It's not necessarily going to be a place where trees would grow, but I'll put them in to honour there will be trees going in down here. But I'm a bit reluctant to put those in at the moment, because just to give you a slight view to what's coming next, this is going to be done next. This is Dinting Bridge. And obviously I've not finished Dinting Station yet. Before somebody mentions it, yes, overhead gantries, they all need to go in. But I wanted to get the foliage done first, but they do tend to get in the way. Trying to do things there, as you can appreciate, with all the gantries in place is quite difficult sometimes, particularly if what you need is directly below one, or cleaning the track, that sort of thing. I think what I'll do is leave the video just there, and hope you've enjoyed it. And we're getting close now, so this time next week, you never know, might all be done. See you soon. Take care of yourself. Bye for now.